My wife is going to be the death of me. The thought preoccupied me for almost 8 weeks. All she cared about was sex. It's not like I'm some kind of Adonis or even particularly good in bed. Something just clicked one day and she became utterly insatiable. See, I'm 90% sure it's because of that vegan diet we started 2 months ago with all the mushrooms and stuff, but the diet's effect on me was nothing compared to how she reacted. She never seemed interested in analyzing the reasons. She just knew what she wanted. And that's all there was to it. See, at first I thought it was great. She'd been waiting for me in bed when I get home from work. We'd have a few minutes of fun, and that was that. For me, at least, Diana, it seemed, needed more than I could give her. I felt pretty bad because I wasn't able to provide it. But I know part of my terrible performance had to do with my diet. I'd been awful. Since I'm so busy with work, I'd been stress eating fast food and other processed garbage. Even though I was eating the vegan stuff too, I'd supplement it with Burger King. I gained weight. I felt awful. I was tired all the time. When Diana's insatiability became apparent and my own inability to satisfy her was weighing heavily on my confidence, I set out to get healthier. I mean, it was the least that I could do, not only for Diana, but for my own well-being. See, it's work too. The last week's been incredible. I've taken time off work. I've exercised every day, and all my meals are healthy vegan, and loaded with good stuff like kale and quinoa and tons of local mushrooms. I think Diana's pleased with the positive changes in me, although her sex drive was still astronomical and hard for me to match. I felt better about myself, and I enjoyed our lovemaking a lot more. It was just less pressure, if that makes sense. Last night was our anniversary, so I wanted to do something special, something non-vegan as a treat. So I made steaks, portobello, and corn pepper cream sauce. I remember laughing to myself as I reduced the pan sauce and plated our meals. Diana always used to be allergic to mushrooms. Deathly allergic, in fact. I don't know what compelled her to serve them for dinner a couple months ago when we started doing the vegan thing, but the difference it made was staggering. Ever since she went to bed that night, she's been a different woman. I brought our meals up to the bedroom. Diana was waiting for me. She looked beautiful. Sexy, too. She was sprawled across the bed on her back, presenting herself to me, and it was her favorite position ever since her sex drive skyrocketed. I told her to hold her horses. She could wait until after dinner. She didn't reply, but she let me feed her bits of steak and mushrooms. I emptied her perfect mouth of the food that I had put there at dinner the night before, and replaced it with our anniversary meal. My head spun with love and affection as I carefully pushed a piece of juicy steak down her throat. I marveled at how the hot meal warmed her mouth. After dinner, I could no longer resist my wife's allure. We made quiet love in our candlelit bedroom. When we were finished, as I was tucking her into bed, I noticed small growths in her armpits and behind her ears. I turned on the lights and looked more closely. Tiny, stringy mushrooms. A new life. I smiled. We were going to be a family. I'm an administrator at a major hospital in New York City. I'm not supposed to talk about this, but it's so disconcerting that I believe more people need to know about it. There's been an unexpected and inexplicable rise in the stockpile of blood. Not only at our hospital, but in hospitals and blood banks all over the world. No one knows where it's coming from, and no one can seem to explain how it gets there. All the routine tests say it's perfectly good and free from any pathogens and impurities, but the fact remains no one knows what's going on. You have to realize hospitals and blood banks everywhere have always been low on blood. That's why there are blood drives and calls for donations and all that. The last few weeks, though, there's been so much that our hospital needs to dispose of some because it expired before we had a chance to use it. As weird as this sounds, it gets worse. This is the part I'm worried with. I'm worried will come back and bite me in the ass if any of the other administrators discover who I am. I signed an NDA explicitly stating that I wouldn't talk about this. Still, I can't keep this quiet. When we dispose of blood, we do it in the incinerator with all the other medical waste. The fire burns so hot, pretty much everything evaporates, and all that's left is inert ash. But this blood, this blood doesn't evaporate. It did something way different. A hospital maintenance worker was on the roof doing some unrelated work when smoke from the incinerator began exiting through the chimney. It looked normal for a while, but then the smoke tapered off and flies started pouring out. He told us they flew straight up for nearly 2 full minutes and hung above the roof like a cloud. After another minute, they fell like rain and burst open, covering the roof and the maintenance workers with the same blood we tried to incinerate. We tried to incinerate more blood, this time with hospital administrators waiting on the roof. Same result. Our administrators have spoken with the heads of their hospital around the country. They've experienced similar issues. The blood banks are bursting with overstock, and people everywhere are being given this blood that just appeared out of nowhere. The last thing I'm going to mention is the patient we readmitted last night. He'd been discharged a month ago following an operation which required multiple transfusions. Those transfusions were done with the mystery blood before anyone noticed its existence. His readmission was due to a fire at his home. He came into the ER with 60% of his body covered in third-degree burns. While he was being worked on, flies erupted from underneath the burned flesh and dropped to the floor, exploding in thick droplets of blood. The patient died soon after. The doctors and nurses were frightened and confused, but they don't know the whole story. But I guess they will soon. Please, help me tell more people about what's going on. The blood just doesn't stop coming. Ron? It's Bill from Sign. I know you asked me to email you if I was having trouble and needed advice from someone at your company. Well, you're the guy I need the advice from. I'm getting ready to smash this goddamn $500 million communications console you guys gave it if I can't figure out what's causing all this distortion. All of my engineers think it's from the wire crosstalk, but they're out of their minds. I wired all this stuff up myself. All the stuff's shielded. Besides, this isn't crosstalk distortion. I've been doing this for 25 years. And I know what wire crosstalk sounds like. I've overseen the installation of every new piece of hardware and every upgrade for 2.5 decades. Not the wiring. I'm resolved to solve this damn problem tonight. If I can't, well, they're just gonna have to buy a whole new console and transceiver array. Maybe if they're nice, I'll even wire it up for them. But I swear to God, if another one of those new enlisted interns, I call them, comes and says their CO is blaming me for the shitty communications, I'm retiring on the spot. Fuck them. And here's what I gotta say. There's something getting picked up on the PHZ band. Yeah, way the fuck up there. Our software default mode is to decode it and shift it down to speech or text. But all we get here are layers of static. The static's permeating the lower bands and affecting the quality of our normal communications. We can't have that. Now there's another reason why I'm writing you, Vaughn, and I know you're cleared to talk to me about this if it's relevant. Last year when you asked for advice on your own little problem with the PHZ band and the assembler prototype, you mentioned something about receiving some type of proprietary schemata. I overrode the software to test something out. Instead of shifting the transmission into our text and speech protocols, I instructed the software to spit out the raw data and see if it matches any of our proprietary system languages. And it did, Vaughn. There was a match, a pretty major one. Like I said, I'm planning on solving this problem tonight. If you can confirm to me that it's your company running something on that band, and you guys are the only other ones who have the capability, you need to let me know and you need to stop. It's not only interfering with our communications abilities, but you shouldn't have access to the particular system language that's being broadcast. I know a lot of you guys left to work for your company over the years, but I mean, if you knew the system that languages were built for, you'd want to stop it too. All I'll say is that it's biological. That should be enough to light a fire under your ass. Lastly, and probably unrelated to this particular problem, but have you guys noticed that the higher amplitude the THZ and PHZ signals are affecting flies? Weird, I know, but when I look at the visualized readout of the signal band and compare it to the number of times that we've found scores of dead flies in and around the facility, it's pretty hard not to see some correlation. I can send you a report of it if you want. See, I got bored the other day and drew something up. Sorry, I've been going on and on about this without asking how you're doing. You good? How's Jessica? Cindy's been asking me to ask you to ask her if she wants to do some tennis over the summer. Danny doing okay? Been almost 10 now, right? It's crazy how the job makes time fly by. I've been a little depressed lately because of the incident that happened a few days ago. You probably read about the thing in the papers, that soldier who went psychotic and shot up his squad. The thing you didn't read about was how the autopsy revealed a weird growth in his brain, not even a tumor. It was some type of severe fungal infection. It was just awful. Anyway, sorry to be a downer. Write me back at the earliest convenience. Let me know what you think. We should meet up for dinner sometime. There's a vegan restaurant downtown in DC that's doing amazing things with mushrooms if you got the time. I'd love to take you there and discuss some work and non-work stuff, you know. Say hi to Jess and Denny for me. Okay. I'm running this in my fitness log and setting it to automatically post this message and my progress for the day. Once the day is over, I hope someone sees it. I've been trying to get into better shape. The doctor said I need to lose over, another 40 pounds. And thanks to the trendy vegan diet of mushrooms and seitan quinoa, and I have lost about 8 so far. My niece showed me how to install a pedometer application on my iPhone so that I could use it when I jog. And it's a lot of fun tracking how many steps I take and how many calories I've burned. It's like a game. One afternoon, I dropped my phone on the driveway and then cracked the front. So I worried I broke the thing. I called Carissa from the home phone and she suggested I test it out. If everything worked, I could just ignore the cracked glass. Everything seemed fine except for the phone part. And for whatever reason, it shut down every time I tried to pull it up. That didn't matter much though, since I only used my landline. There was one other issue though. The pedometer app was recording incorrectly. See, I get from the first to the second floor of my house. You need to climb the 14 stairs. So I tested the pedometer and it counted 15 steps. I tried it again on the way down. It was 17. To be honest, I felt a little dejected. I'd really gotten into my fitness regimen and I loved the charts and the graphs the pedometer program used to show my progress. Now, with the numbers being inaccurate, all those pretty progress trackers would be pointless. I did my best to swallow my disappointment and kept telling myself that the charts and stuff didn't matter. The exercise was the only important thing, so I kept going. I still use my pedometer as a reference, but I didn't bother tracking anymore. Time went by and I've gotten into the groove because I've been losing weight and getting into better shape quicker than I thought. It felt great. Even at 56 years old, I had enough energy of someone who was 20 or younger. When I visited the doctor for another checkup, I complained to him about recurring pain in my shins and my feet. Apparently one of the problems with exercising when you're overweight is that it can take a toll on your feet and your legs. I should have known. He told me to ease up on the jogging until the pain went away, and then I could slowly work back up to it. I decided that I'd take his advice about the jogging, but I'd walk instead, so I wasn't going to just sit on my ass and do nothing. I'd lose all the progress that I'd made, so every evening I walked. Out of habit, I'd check the pedometer every now and again. Before it broke, it took me a little over 2,000 steps to walk a mile. Now it registered between 2,500 to 4,000 for the same distance. I found the wildly inaccurate readings funny if my legs and feet didn't hurt so much. It wasn't as bad as when I jogged, but it was still pretty painful. I started to worry that I'd had to stay on the couch for a while after that. This morning I decided to take a long jog before I took a week off to give my body time to recover. And instead of my usual mile that I decided to do 3. I knew I couldn't run the whole thing, but I'd slowed down and I walked until I was able to jog again. The local high school has a track with a rubberized surface, so I figured that'd be a little less detrimental to my legs and feet. And still, before I left, I popped a few ibuprofens knowing that my lower half would be really angry with me the whole way. Despite the impending pain, I was excited to push myself. I knew something was wrong after the first mile around the track. I was absolutely exhausted. I looked at the stopwatch part of the pedometer. It seemed right about 13 minutes, 19 seconds. Not a time to write home about, but much faster than when I started jogging. My breathing was awful, I thought. I was huffing and puffing, and I was only through sheer will I made it the first mile at all. I slowed to a walk as my shins screamed at me. While I walked, I swiped over from the stopwatch to the pedometer. Even when I choked for each breath, I managed to bark out a joyless laugh. The pedometer, which I zeroed out before I started, it read 15,000. Oh, I kept watching the pedometer as I amped forward, dreading the moment when my breathing would slow and I'd be able to jog again. With each step, the numbers got even crazier. 15,015, 15,110, 16,274. My ankles felt like they were going to crumble underneath me. Obviously, I was far less ready than I thought to attempt a longer distance, especially with my legs and my feet in such bad shape. Still huffing and puffing, I decided to give up and headed back to the car. With each step, I started watching the pedometer. 17,990, 19,330, 20,009. When I reached the car, about 100 feet away, it said 54,001. I collapsed into the driver's seat and worried I was having a heart attack. I'd never been so exhausted. Gradually, though, my breathing returned and to something resembling normal. I was at a point where I noticed both my sneakers were soaked with blood. I gritted my teeth. I started the car and I drove home. It's 2 hours since I got back. I'm on the floor in too much pain to move. When I walked the short distance from my driveway to the front door, the pedometer readout went from 54,001 to 312,376. I fell into a heap on the front hallway. I tried to get a grip on what was going on. My feet were in agony. I carefully removed my bloody shoes as I pushed off my socks. All the nails tore from my toes. As if it wasn't bad enough, my bottoms of my feet, they were raw. They were dripping blood. The bleeding slowed after a while, but I'm in terrible pain. I'm typing this out on my iPhone now because I know I need to use the bathroom. I need to get something to eat. I need to go on my way, but I'm terrified to get up. I know I should call 911, but my landline phone is 2 rooms away. I don't know what'll happen if I take another step. No, fuck it. I can't stand the thought of being helpless, of being a cripple. I'm just not going to sit here and be afraid. I'm going for the phone. End of day auto update. May 15th, 2016, complete. Progress. 19,244,774,002 steps. Keep up the good work.